Good evening, everyone. It's been a couple of days since I've done one of these, so I wanted to jump on and say hello and share a few things with you. Do you have problems with getting rid of your belly or excess inches around your hips, your arms, everywhere else, excess weight? So I've been doing a bunch of classes and videos lately, the last several weeks, about things that impact our body's ability to function optimally, that is in our genetics. And there are a couple of genes that if you happen to have variations of these genes, then those things called SNPs will influence and have a big part to play in how well you can manage your weight. So what are SNPs? So we've got the basic thing in your genes, which tells the body how to run and function and give you your skin color, your hair color, your eyes and such. And so genes there's two different types of genes called the FTO genes, which regulate your weight and fat. Hey, David, thanks for joining in. So if you have a gene, or if one of your FTO genes are not structured correctly, or they have an excess protein, or they're missing a protein, then that means that you are predisposed to having a harder time managing your weight. And how would you know about this? Well, you don't unless you get your DNA tested. And if you're interested in that, then just drop me a line and I can give you some information about how you can get your genetics tested to know whether or not you have this SNP, and know that the lab that would test your DNA for this, it's HIPAA certified, so no one will ever see or sell your information, your genetic makeup, or your genetic chart, because with some companies that is a problem. They'll sell your information, your DNA, without your consent, and then the other parties, hey Kevin, thanks for tuning in. The other parties that buy your DNA information can do unscrupulous things with it. So we don't want that to happen. So anyway, the lab that I use, or that I have access to for reading your DNA, does not do that. So let me tell you about the FTO genes and what it does. So the bottom line is it basically influences you to want to eat more and overeat. And, looking at our society's food supply in the standard American diet, then it's not hard to overeat, especially when there's a lot of sugar and chemicals and crap added to the food to make you overeat. And then when you have the FTO gene variant on top of that, then you're just setting yourself up for problems. So it's the I'll read you some notes here. So let's see if it's something that resonates with you. And if you find value in this, let me know. If there's things that you want to know more about, then let me know, and I can give you some more information. So the FTO gene is kind of commonly known as the fat gene. And it has a strong association with being overweight. And most people, or a lot of people who have this, studies have been done on people who have this, and they're much more prone to eating fatty foods and too much foods, which can just set them up for the excess weight. There was a study done, and let me know what you think about this. With people, they were hooked up to their brain. Scans were hooked up to their brains to show images of various foods. And when they were shown fatty foods, then people with the FTO gene, or the variant, had more activity in certain parts of their brain, suggesting that they were more drawn to those types of foods. And then when they dined at an all-you-can-eat buffet, then those people ate a lot more calories than people who did not have the FTO gene variant. And so it not only affects your weight and how your body uses food, but the types of food that you're drawn to and the parts of your brain that light up that encourage you to be drawn to unhealthy foods. So if you know that you have this and you really want to look at what you're eating and what the portion sizes are, and so it's not that you can't lose weight if you have this gene variant, you just have to know that if you do have it, then you've got to take extra precautions and manage your lifestyle and your mindset differently, and I'll share some things with you that can affect that. So if that interests you, then just give me a thumbs up and a like, and I will tell you some more. And if you have questions as I'm going along, then just type them in and I can answer them as I go too. Okay. I'm just running over some of my notes here. So some of the problems that are correlated with the FTO gene is that because of the way it influences certain centers of the brain to light up so that you overeat and you're drawn to wrong foods, then you are much more predisposed to, thanks for joining in, Dave, see you again. You're much more predisposed to having metabolic syndrome, which is characterized by a lot of abdominal fat and excess weight in inches around that, which sets you up for insulin resistance, and that is a precursor for diabetes. It's also also puts you at a greater risk for heart disease, cancer, and the heavy hitters that so many people in our society have. And so you really would want to really curb your diet and lifestyle and how you do things if you know that you've got this gene variant. So about 42% of Caucasians or white people have this, about 5% of Africans, and about 21% of Asians carry this gene variant. So it really does go across the board. It's not exclusive to any type of a race. And with this, then the majority of weight gain is caused by overeating, as well as being much more drawn to sugary foods. And the part of the brain that lights up when people see the images of fatty foods or unhealthy foods, as well as encouraging them to overeat at a buffet, then it's the hypothalamus part of the brain, which is responsible for the regulation of appetite and satiety, which is, or telling your mind and body, your gut, that you're full. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. Let me tell you about some things about just general overweightness so that you can be aware of them, and then some things that you can do to avoid it or sidestep it. So Americans on average at every meal, now the average meal is about 400 to 500 calories. However, the average person today will eat a meal that's loaded with 800 or more calories. So that alone tells you it doesn't take long before a lot of the weight packs in, and you can see it on everyone. So, and a lot of the time the weight, the excess fat it plays a protective measure. Hello, Frank. Thanks for joining in. I'm talking about things you can do for weight management. So a lot of things that the fat or the functions that the fat cells do in our bodies is that it has a protective measure. So when you're eating too much and you're eating very poor quality of food loaded with chemicals and toxins and xenoestrogens and bad kinds of fat and no nutritional value, then the fat cells of your body will store toxins, because if those toxins were to circulate around in your body and in your bloodstream and land in other organs, other areas of your body, that would be much more disastrous or problematic. As well as if the liver is overloaded from having to process and break down all of those toxins, then it just creates a backlog of congestion. And so the fat cells will expand to hold all of those toxins as a way of helping the liver out, as a way of keeping those toxins elsewhere, away from organs that would like your heart and lungs, or things that would impact your life. Okay, so one thing, if you're going to look at how you can drop your weight, if you have a lot of excess weight, or if you've got blood sugar problems, then really look at switching things out of your diet and helping your body so that it doesn't have to have such an overload of all these toxic chemicals that your fat cells then have to store. The liver has to break down literally every chemical that runs through the body. Not just that, but all of the hormones that it makes and all of the emotional molecules that your body makes. So there's a lot of different functions that your liver is always doing, and it's easy to get overwhelmed because there's so much toxic stuff that your liver has to deal with. So help it out a little bit and do some things, take some measures to clean up your diet, get rid of the junk, get rid of the fast foods, that get rid of the excess animal products and dairy, and go towards more of a plant-based diet, something that your body can recognize, that has nutrition in it, that it knows how to use, and gives the body the raw materials and resources that it needs to break down excess toxins, to break down and help you drop weight and to keep your blood sugar levels correct. So I'll say a little bit more about that later on. When we're looking at the FTO gene, one of the things that was helpful in helping you maintain your weight is to support a healthy BMI. So what is that? BMI is the body mass index. So it's the ratio between the amount of fat you have and then all of your other organs and bones and tissues and everything. So if you were to strip away all the fat and just measure your body of just the lean muscle and everything, then that's your BMI, your lean mass. And then when you take whatever weight of fat that you have and then create a percentage of that, then that will give you your BMI. So a lot of charts will tell you that for women that the healthy weight or healthy body fat mass index should be, you should have about 18 to 25% fat body fat. However, that's not really accurate, because a lot of those charts are based, number one, on younger people, and number two, on athletes. And so if you're somebody over 50, then that chart's not going to apply to you, because it's, as we get older, we naturally lose body fat, or lose a little bit of lean muscle mass, and we just naturally accumulate fat anyway, especially once the hormonal changes have been done. So don't let that discourage you or give you the wrong message. But if anything, then maybe look for somebody, if you want to have your BMI measured, then look for a chart that will accommodate people who are older, and that will give you a much more accurate result. So people, generally speaking, for men that have more of a 29% body fat and women who have more than 37% body fat, then that is going to make you or set you up to be a lot more insulin resistant, which means you've got blood sugar problems because you've been eating too much sugar and your insulin levels are too high, you're burning out your pancreas, and the cells have become insensitive to insulin, so they can't open up to receive all of that sugar. It's just too much of an overload. And then you've got then the cells aren't getting the energy that they need, and you're just setting yourself up for a lot of problems. And that's when you get into, you'll go into metabolic syndrome, the gut, excess gut weight, and a lot of other problems start to develop. So you want to look at that. If your waist is much bigger than your hips, hello, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining in. I'm talking about managing healthy weights and genes that, fat genes. So if you have a waist that's larger than your hips, that's much more of a better indication of whether or not you're prone to problems like diabetes, heart disease, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and all those big heavy hitting diseases, rather than your BMI. Hey Tim, thanks for tuning in. I'm talking about tips that you can use for or do for helping maintain a healthy weight and some genes that make it more complicated if you have these particular gene variants. So if you have questions about anything that I'm sharing, then please leave a comment or questions below and I'll answer them for you. So one of the biggest things in our diet and society today that encourages weight gain is the inflammation that happens as a result of poor diet. Our bodies have to expend a huge amount of energy to digest and break down the food. Hey Skip, thanks for joining in. Talking about ways to manage healthy weight. There's a lot of energy that's expended that our digestion does just to break down and process and metabolize the food, especially if it's poor quality and especially if there's a lot of toxins in it, especially if there's the wrong kind of fats, if there's too much animal protein, too much dairy, not enough nutrients, too much processed flour and sugar. That's a lot of energy that the body has to expend. Not only does it throw off the gut flora balance, but it will set you up for a lot of inflammation. And if you have a lot of chronic inflammation and gut flora imbalance, then it makes it very difficult to maintain your weight, especially if you have the FTO, fat gene variants, because then that just sets you up to want to overeat further. And then you compound that with the chemicals and the sugars in foods that are put there intentionally by food manufacturers to make you overeat, to make you addicted to those crappy foods. And then you've got a shitstorm brewing in your gut. Kind of not a very good scene there or scenario there, but that's what happens. So you really want to look at that. So doing a detox or a cleanse for your body regularly, say like every season, a couple times a year, doing some intermittent fasting, those are things that can really help your body normalize, take down the inflammation, get rid of the excess sugar levels in your blood, and just normalize and harmonize everything to set a stage so that your body can comfortably drop the excess weight, regardless of whether or not you've got the FTO gene variant. One of the things that also makes it really difficult for dropping the weight is emotional stress. And that ties right in with the choice of foods that we have, because as you know, especially, for women who have got a lot of hormone stuff going on, and there's, the time of the month that makes them go crazy, it's just hormones going out of whack. And then that drives you to want to eat sugary foods, your comfort foods, or if you've had a horrible day, or if you're going through a horrible season of stress, of divorce, of hating your job, of, all the stuff that life throws at you that you're having a hard time dealing with, or even if there's been mistreatment, abuse, a history of trauma and hard, really bad experiences in your life that you've not been able to really deal with and process. All of that emotional stress is stored in your tissues and oftentimes in your gut. And that has a big influence over emotional eating, food addictions, food allergies, inflammation, blood sugar levels, and whether or not you can drop the weight. So if you have a weight issue, especially if you've got excess cushion or padding around your middle, then you really want to look at the emotional component, the emotional addiction to the foods that's keeping you at that weight. Doing detoxes and cleanses can really help that, getting rid of a lot of the foods that we are actually addicted to. Chemically, we're addicted to those foods. And so coming off of them is like breaking any other type of an addiction. It's a process. And the more you can support your body in releasing the chemicals and the toxins that keep you addicted to those comfort foods, then the easier time is going to be. So just take it gradually. And if you want help with that, if you want some suggestions, then just contact me privately. I can give you some info on that. But just going back to eating real food. Lots of dark leafy greens, a lot of produce, certain fruits if you don't have a lot of blood sugar problems, nuts and seeds. Get off the excess animal protein. That's showing more and more and more that creates more problems than what people want to admit. There's more and more research showing that, as well as getting off the sugar, because that will throw everything off. So really looking at some of the emotional strains and stressors that drive you to want to overeat, to drive you to go for the pastries, the chocolate, the ice cream and stuff, and really look at what are you feeling, what are you thinking right before you have that desire or that unconscious urge to go pork out in front of the TV with a gallon of ice cream. What's going on in your life that is so uncomfortable for you that you cannot digest it, you can't stomach something in your life? And so to cover it up, to give more sweetness, then you reach for the sugary comfort foods so that your body chemically can experience a sense of sweetness, of pleasure, to create more dopamine and serotonin, which is made in your gut. However, it's a false sense of sweetness because you're just covering up the situation over here in your life that you can't stomach. So be willing to look at that, deal with the unsavory emotions. Oftentimes it's the pain, the anger, the resentment, the depression, the gamut of the hard, difficult emotions that we don't often want to face. And yet, if you continue to eat those emotions away, you're just stuffing it down into your gut and you're creating a train wreck waiting to happen. And if you've got the FTO gene variant, then that's just added fuel to that fire. So really check yourself on that and be willing to step out of your comfort zone. Be willing to look at, oh wow, I'm probably addicted to sugar and crappy foods here, and so maybe I ought to do something about it. And if you are, then get some help. Ask me for some resources. Hello, Diane. How are you doing? I'm sharing some ways of maintaining healthy weight. One thing I also want to share about the FTO genes or the fat genes is that they're not cut in stone. Just because you have them, Elizabeth, frozen custard. Oh yeah, that's a nice little thing. So yeah, just look at number one, what's the ingredients in that? And secondly, can you make a custard or the thing that substitute that favorite thing with healthy versions, healthy ingredients, because there's a lot of recipes and stuff out there. So look at what your favorite things are and look for healthier versions to help you get off the processed food, the excess processed sugar and all the garbage. Hey Michael, how you doing? Right, and not storing emotions and all the things you absolutely messes with your emotional eating and messes with your body weight. So I want to say something about this, about epigenetics with this FTO gene variant. So just because you may have it doesn't mean that it's set in stone and that you're required or that you are doomed to having problems with your weight or that you're doomed to overeating and grabbing sugar, that there's nothing you can do about it. Hi Hazel. If you've studied anything about epigenetics, I don't know if you guys have, so if you have, then just let me drop a line or drop a comment or button or whatever, let me know that you are familiar with it. But epigenetics is all about, the science is all about the mind and lifestyle and emotional health. And if you've got that in check, then it will literally determine what genes are read and how they are read. So they are, it helps, if your lifestyle is at a higher level, so to speak, then it can strongly influence whether or not genes have, there's a protein sleeve that genes have. And based upon your diet, your lifestyle, your mindset, and everything, that strongly influences whether or not that protein sleeve uncovers the gene so that it can be read and then expressed. And also that helps determine the expression of that gene, whether or not it moves more into and encourages an expression of greater life and thriving and life force potential and expansion, or if that gene expression is going to spiral downward into destruction, disease, death, negative things. And so you really want to look at what is your diet, what is your mindset, what is your overall lifestyle, and really look at the stress. Because as I mentioned, it's not, the stresses aren't just the dietary stress from a horrible diet, it's everything else in your life. And what happens too with having things passed down from generation to generation, which is where we end up with this FTO gene variant, is let's say your grandfather or your grandmother had something going on in their life that they never resolved. There was stressors, there was emotional stuff, or they went through hard times. I mean, like for example, my grandfather at the beginning of the 1900s, all of my grandparents, they went through the Great Depression. That was a very stressful, difficult time for everybody in this country. Or people who went through horrendous experiences in World War II, in Germany or Europe or any of the world wars. There's always stressors, hard times, traumas, and everything that people experience. So if you're not able to deal with that, and then you have a diet that's subpar on top of it, and then you have a negative mindset, that's going to influence how your genes express, what they do. And so over time, let's say decades or a lifetime, and you've encouraged your body and your genetics to express a certain way based upon your lifestyle and your diet and your mental makeup, your emotional mental makeup. Every time your cells divide, the information in your genetics is going to tell the daughter cells to weaken. The genetics are going to change. And so down the generations, that's when you end up with something like a gene variant where a protein is missing because of this backstory of how your ancestors lived. And so you come along and then you're into this environment of absolutely stress releases cortisol, which ties directly in with weight gain. So you come along in whatever your family environment is, and so there's the habitual lifestyle that's passed down, the habitual norms of this is how we live, this is how we eat, this is the attitudes and biases and beliefs that we have. You absorb all of that, and so you just perpetuate the same expression of the genes that your parents, your grandparents did. And so look at that and really consider, it's like, what have you adopted that you may not even be currently conscious of, but we all have adopted stories and beliefs and ways of dealing with people and messages of how life is supposed to work and the types of foods that we eat that oftentimes are not conducive to thriving, to health, to expansion, and to growth. So the more you can, yeah, thank you, Michael. I've studied a lot. The more you can really tune into that, hey, Kelly, then the more you have choices available to you to do things different. And so, like, for example, if you have your genetics tested to where you know whether or not you've got this FTO, the fat gene variant, then that just gives you more information of how you can make different choices so that your own body builds stronger daughter cells each time they replicate, and so that you can set a new precedent for your own self, for any children you may have, if you're still young enough, or for future generations. It doesn't have to continue from one generation to the next like an automated recording of poor health. So really think about that and look into the area of epigenetics and learn about that. Hi, Kelly, just to kind of catch you up, I'm talking about things that you can do for healthy weight management and some genes that, genes in our DNA that affect it. So all of that being said, you guys may want to go back and listen to some of the stuff that I shared earlier if you're just now coming on, but let me know what questions you have, if you find this interesting, if you want to learn more. So I wanted to share with you a couple of things that you can do food-wise to help you with this. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of vitamin C in your diet, and that's a very common vitamin. We think oftentimes that it comes in citrus fruits, but it's also found in a lot of other vegetables and even dark leafy greens have a lot of vitamin C in it. So just do a Google search for whole foods that contain vitamin C, and then you'll have a list of like 100, I don't know, 50 different things or 25 different foods, whole foods, and then put them into your diet. Make sure you eat them every day. So you get a lot of vitamin C. And then there's another thing called Berberine, and this is an alkali. It's a bioactive alkaloid. So this is it's a supplement that you can get, which will help with this. And it helps activate an enzyme that helps regulate the metabolism. So if you're wanting to, hey Joanne, thanks for tuning in. I'm talking about things you can do for healthy weight. If you want to boost your metabolism and support that, there's a lot of different things you can do for that, especially with the mitochondria in your cells, which regulate the energy levels, and then a healthy thyroid. But the berberine alkaloid or a supplement, go look that up and see where you can find a good quality source of that, and that can help with healthy metabolism and help override the FTO gene variant. Michael, yes, we don't produce vitamin C as humans, and Stephen Gundry and Lewis Howes have good podcasts about it. Good things to know. Yeah, 6% of our health is determined by genetics, and yeah, I've heard that stat too, Michael, for a while. Especially when it comes to diseases. And so many people have this idea that, you know, once you have a predisposition to something like cancer or diabetes or whatever, just because your grandfather had it or your grandmother had it, that you have to have it too. And it's absolutely not true. So don't buy into that story that the conventional health media wants to spin for you to make you afraid so that you go run to your doctor and load up on drugs to kill yourself and make them rich. But yeah, the study of epigenetics has shown that literally there's only about 5-6% of cancers can directly, or maybe it's even 3%, can directly be shown as a cause be caused by genetics. Everything else is lifestyle. So definitely take this into consideration of the stuff that I'm sharing with you. Okay, another thing that can help with healthy weight management and helping with the FTO gene regulation is alpha lipoic acid. And this is another supplement thing. It's an antioxidant commonly found in food, which helps the body restore certain vitamin levels and breaks down carbohydrates, as well as to decrease blood sugar levels. And so with this FTO gene variant where it makes you want to overeat, number one, and then grab sugary foods, then this can really help. So it's alpha lipoic acid, ALPHA, LIPOIC acid. So go look that up, and if you feel like you could use some more of that, then take a dose. All right, the last couple things, you know, there's loads and loads of stuff about herbs and foods that can help with this, and I'm not going to get into that because that's a huge other monster conversation. But there are a couple other plant-based things that can help with weight management, with boosting your metabolism. Hey, Andrea, thanks for tuning in. I'm sharing ways of healthy weight management, so you want to go back and listen to my video if this is a thing that you want to know more of. So I talk a lot about other plant-based products and uses to support all aspects of health, and essential oils are one of them. And especially when you have a good high quality oil, then it's been shown, there's a lot of research done on essential oils, and chemically, the way they interact with the body, they can really help shift the body's chemistry to help with metabolism, to help with sugar cravings, to help with overeating, to help with lowering your blood fat, your body fat, a lot of different things, as well as chemically help you shift your state emotionally. The body, for every emotion that you have, the body makes chemicals for. And so let's say if you're stuck in this loop of feeling angry and depressed and down and out and just icky, those are chemicals that your body is making. And so by using certain essential oils, that can help the body shift chemically so that you can get out of that lower emotional state and move into a higher state of like gratitude, joy, happiness, and all the lovely fun things that we prefer to be. So here's a couple of things that you can, a couple of essential oils that you can use that will help with dropping weight and helping metabolism and your blood sugar. Okay, so grapefruit. Here's a little blend for you. 10 drops of grapefruit essential oil and myrtle essential oil and lemongrass essential oil. So you mix those together and throw them in a capsule and take those 2 to 3 times a day. And that really helps with managing stress, reducing caloric intake so you don't eat so much, and helping with your satiety levels, or letting you know when you're full. Okay, let me give you a couple other essential oils. And if you'd like to know more about essential oils and where you can get some, then just drop me a line. If you also want to know about how you can get your genes tested to know whether or not you have the FTO gene variant, drop me a line. Okay, here's some single oils that can help with weight loss. Peppermint, Roman chamomile, nutmeg and clove, grapefruit, as I mentioned earlier, fennel, cinnamon, lavender, frankincense, and vanilla absolute. So those have all been shown to help, again, chemically support your body in dropping excess weight. And then here's a couple other oils that can support you with, let's see, here's one more thing about other oils for weight loss and appetite and energy and all that lovely stuff. Tangerine, spearmint, lemon, and an oil called ocotea, which is exclusive to certain companies and only found, or it's sourced from plants down in the Amazon. And then the last thing is, I mentioned that stress and emotional eating and all the emotional stuff has a huge part to play in whether or not we store fat, and as well as being able to get rid of it. So there is some oils that can help with that emotional component. So those are lavender, geranium, sandalwood, ylang-ylang, which is a nice, lovely, flowery smell, essential oil, and an oil called blue tansy. So, hey, Co, how you doing? So when you mix those all together and take that blend and use that regularly, then that really helps, especially if you rub that essential oil blend over your liver, then that, and on the bottoms of your feet or on your heart space, then that essential oil blend can help you deal with all of the emotional stress and all the emotional craziness and the anger and all the gamut of emotional stuff that we experience that leads us to emotionally eat and then develop food cravings and food addictions, and then you have a shitstorm going on in your gut, and then you gain weight. So that's just kind of a few little things I wanted to share with you tonight. There's a whole other hundreds of conversations that we can have about that. But if you like what I shared, if you have more questions, then let me know. Give me a thumbs up, a like, share this video for people you know who could have, who are looking for solutions to help with their weight loss. It's more than just going to Weight Watchers and starving yourself for a week and then gaining the weight back on. There's a whole dynamic going on in your body as to why you gain weight, and then what you need to do to unravel it so you can keep it off and make it a permanent thing. And a lot of it has to do with your lifestyle, your emotional makeup, your mindset, how happy you are in your life and in your relationships. So with that, let me know what you think. If you have questions, I also have a newsletter that I send out to people a couple times a week where I share things like this. So if you like it, if you want to be put on that newsletter, drop me a line and share the video. You're very welcome, Elizabeth. Thanks for tuning in. And if there's other things that you would like to know health-wise, holistic health-wise, mindset, emotional healing, emotional health, let me know. because I have lots of resources and a lot of experience with all that stuff. All right, so thanks for tuning in. I've enjoyed chatting with y'all, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.